I've got a hot take for you guys today. Hear me out. The Honda Grom is one of the best motorcycles ever produced. What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things. I've got a Honda Grom update for you guys today, and I'm sure there's already some of you down in the comments below refuting what I said there with my hot take, but I've got an explanation for you, and this is a motovlog with me just kind of riding around and ranting and raving about the Honda Grom as its platform entirely. Now, this video is probably going to seem like it's sponsored by Honda. It's not. I wish it was, because that would be really cool to have a connection like that, but I just love this bike for so many reasons, and the main thing is that all of the pros of this tiny little package, in my opinion, heavily outweigh the cons. So before we get into the ride, if you guys have not seen this before or you haven't seen my older Honda Grom, let me at least catch you up to speed with this specific bike right here and all of the modifications that I've done to it. Now, if you conveniently head over to my website under sciproductions.com/scigarage, I actually have a list of everything that I've done to all of the vehicles that you currently see on my channel. So if we scroll down to the Grom, you got a full list of everything that we have going on here. So I'm catching you up to speed and updating you guys on just two of the changes that I made right now. Starting with the bike itself, this is a 2022 Honda Grom. I bought this thing from a dealer right after they went ahead and changed the body style. They also made some updates to the engine and the gearbox, so this is a 5-speed bike now. It has a 1:10 compression ratio, and it just makes a little bit more power and is a little bit easier to ride overall than the previous models. Now, they keep making these things better every year, and I'm not exactly sure where they're sitting at currently in 2024. But the next time that Honda decides to make a big update to their bike like this, there's a good chance that I'm going to go out and buy it. Now, for mods, we have the Pro Taper Honda mini bars up front here, which is one of my favorite things because it really changes the ergonomics of this bike. It allows you to tuck a little bit more, the handlebars aren't super high, and it kind of makes it feel more like a sport bike, which is what I grew up riding. On there, I also have shorty race levers and a Chimera quick twist throttle tube. And then over on the left side, I have a CRG hindsight mirror. Just enough to keep me legal. It can flip in, that way I could lane split if I decide to do that. A lot of people think that bar and mirrors like this are stupid, and it is kind of jeopardizing the functionality of the bike. I've always ridden with these mirrors here, and it's not been an issue for me in my 16 years of riding motorcycles. Now, down below, I have a Zoom exhaust, which I have wrapped in some kind of like heat protection material, really just for looks more than anything, but it also keeps it from getting dinged up, as you can see underneath there. It's a little bit frayed from the miles of riding on the road and loading it and unloading it from my rear bike carrier. Adds a little bit more power and adds a lot of sound. It's almost too loud, but with a bike that's tiny like this, it's good to be heard when you're riding around other vehicles. In the back, I have a man-in-the-box tail tidy here, so it relocates the plate, makes everything nice and streamlined in the back. I also have a man-in-the-box integrated turn and brake light assembly. It's kind of smoked, custom LED there, and of course, I have some flush mount turn signals in the front too, which match them perfectly. Those are coming from TST Industries. I also put some Renthal grips on the bars when I switched those out. And then for performance, I have a Chimera intake over here with a K&N air filter on there. I also made a full video of a DHM camshaft install and also a DHM ECU flash, which basically just changes the whole computer on this bike. I have had absolutely no issues with either of those things, and it makes the bike so much more fun to ride. And then to top all that stuff off, the two new things that you guys can already see here are the new wrap graphics on here from Lucid Wraps. We have completely wrapped this thing in Psy camo from the tail all the way up to the front fender. This is my signature camo pattern that I designed and I put on all of my vehicles. I used a 3M gloss material for this one. And then of course we use orange accents, just like all my vehicles, all over this thing. So we have a halo around the headlight, makes you a little bit more visible. I even wrapped the Pro Taper bar pad on here, which is kind of neat. We have the big Psy logos on each side of the bike, and then another orange halo around the taillight here. We took it a step further this time, if you guys remember the old wrap, and I actually removed my rear fender and chain guard, and we completely wrapped that in Psy Camo too. So this thing is looking like a brand new bike. It is all complete, nice and glossy, and it's much easier to keep clean this way, and it protects the paint too. Now for the icing on the cake, this thing previously was wrapped and had tires to kind of match my old van. Since I no longer have that van, I decided that I should make this thing match the Supra, or maybe even the new Tacoma. So same kind of wrap scheme as both of those vehicles. And since I am primarily riding this thing on the road now, I opted for some new street tires. I had some kind of big blocks on here before, which were fine, both on-road and off-road, but since I am mainly riding this thing on the road, and I of course am working with Firestone, this company right here, Bridgestone, of course owns Firestone, and they make some performance tires. If I ever decide to put tires on the Supra, it will of course be some Bridgestones, and Bridgestone makes this guy right here, which is the Battle Axe SC. The Battle Axe is one of their performance tires for street bikes, and the SC of course is for scooter. This thing isn't really a scooter, it's a motorcycle, but scooter size wheels. So we have a really nice tread pattern on here, and I still need to break these things in, so we're going to be taking it a little bit easy through the canyon that I'm riding today, but it shouldn't take long for these things to get scrubbed in and feel extra grippy. They're already really grippy in the middle, which is nice. These tires take away some of the rolling resistance from those big knobby tires that I had on here before, and I can ride this thing more like a street bike, especially when I'm on the road. I can still go off-road a little bit, but if I want to do that, I of course have my Sur-On, which I brought you guys a video on last week. So if you haven't caught the off-road stuff, I'll leave a link for that up in the corner, and without further ado, let's go ride this thing and talk about why it is probably one of the best motorcycles ever manufactured. Got some fresh pavement on this road here, which is going to be really nice for breaking in these tires. Should probably warm them up a little bit. It was definitely a lot warmer down in the city. About 80 degrees today here in Denver, Colorado, and it's going to be a lot colder once we get up into the mountains here. So let's first start talking about my relationship with the platform of the Honda Grom. My very first Grom I bought back in 2014, I believe. So like 10 years ago. I've been riding Honda Groms for about 10 years. And I have had experience on a ton of different motorcycles, from my very first bike when I was 16 all the way up until now. So I've been riding motorcycles for 16 years or so, everything from, well, mainly sport bikes. Really started with a Honda 600 F4i, Honda Fireblade 1000RR, and then I had my Grom, I had a Yamaha Dual Sport, I had a Suzuki DRZ 400, had the Husky 701 Supermoto, which I sold this year, and this is really only my true motorcycle. The only things that I have in my garage right now are the Sur-On, the Honda Grom, and the Honda Ruckus as well. So when it comes to a lot of the pros and cons of these motorcycles, I'm speaking from someone who's been riding motorcycles for a really long time. That being said though, I think this is a very, very good bike for beginners because it's not super high powered. This thing is a 125, and of course with my modifications, still a 125, but makes a little bit more power. It's a little bit more rideable up in the mountains and canyons like this. I think this is a really good beginner bike if you've never stepped foot on a motorcycle before, and it's really easy to pick up and learn all of the mechanics behind riding a motorcycle, especially on the street. Now, when I picked this bike up back in 22, it is a 22, I think I got it maybe in August. I think August of 21. So when I bought this bike, I believe I paid about $3,500 for it, which is pretty cheap for a motorcycle. This thing is actually cheaper than what a Sur-On goes for nowadays. I think the Sur-On that I brought you guys a video on last week, when I bought that, it was about $3,500. Now, if you check out some of the websites, I believe they're going for like $42 somewhere, sometimes even up to $4,500. So it's kind of insane that you can get a bike, register it, insure it, just like any other motorcycle, ride it on the road, and you can get something like this cheaper than a Sur-On. Pretty cool in my opinion. That is definitely a big pro when it comes to getting into a motorcycle like this. Now, everyone's experience is going to vary a little bit, but let's talk about the power. This is something that I find as a pro. However, I could definitely see some people looking at it as a con, specifically if you are a new rider. This bike is, I would say, pretty underpowered, but for what it is, it makes the power that it should make. With a little bit of modification, you can make it go a little bit quicker, and with everything that I've done to my bike, I would say comfortably I can ride at about 65 miles per hour on the highway, and that's going to vary depending if I'm going uphill, downhill. The absolute max that I've ever had this bike to is actually 80 miles per hour, which is kind of insane for small wheels, small tires, and small displacement too. So when it comes to new riders hopping on something like a Honda Grom for the first time, it is very manageable. The power is not crazy at all, and you can really get used to riding a motorcycle. However, you could look at this as a con because it is underpowered for most highways. And if you are a new rider riding a very underpowered bike on a highway, that could be a pretty dangerous situation. So if you are a new rider riding something small and kind of underpowered like this, you really need to learn how to ride defensively. Let's see how these tires feel. Yeah, they feel pretty good. I think they're starting to scrub in a little bit. Now, when you're scrubbing in new tires on a really powerful bike, it's really easy to give it too much throttle, which of course causes the rear tire to spin, slide out in a turn. But because this thing is underpowered, at least compared to like everything else out there, I think it allows you to break in the tires a little bit more easily. So if you're a new rider riding in traffic, riding defensively basically means giving yourself a ton of distance between other vehicles, really staying vigilant, having your head on a swivel, looking through corners, staying out of people's blind spots, making sure you're positioning yourself in their mirrors so you can be seen at all times. I'm not going to preach on best practices for riding a motorcycle here, but I'm kind of agreeing for anyone who says, it's too slow, that's a con of the motorcycle. That's fine. However, when you are experienced and you do know how to ride a motorcycle decently well, riding this thing full throttle like I am right now, everywhere you go, is just super fun. If I did this on a 600 and was trying to rip this same canyon, it would become very dangerous very quickly because I would basically never be full throttle through any of this stuff. When it's a public road, there's dirt and cinders all around. Looks like we might even get some rain here. So I can actually ride this bike to its full potential without getting too dangerous. I mean, right now I'm going uphill. We're probably at like 7,000 feet in elevation, doing 45 miles an hour, coming up on another driver in front of me. So for me, being that it is a pretty slow bike, it just makes it really fun for me to ride around. Even if I'm giving it the beans everywhere I'm going, it's really not going to get me in too much trouble. And as long as I keep in my mind that I do have to ride a little bit defensively, you're going to have a great time. I feel like the love and hate for the Honda Grom is really split down the middle. A lot of people love them, like me. Been riding motorcycles for a long time, and it's just super fun. It's inexpensive. It's inexpensive to insure. I don't mind it sitting in my garage for months on end without being ridden because it's not costing me any money, and I can hop on it and go out and fall in love with riding it again. Now, when I have something like the Husky 701 sitting in my garage, that thing is more expensive to insure as well. And then when it's sitting in my garage, kind of costing me money and I'm not riding it as much, that's when I'm like, maybe I should sell it. That's why I constantly go through motorcycles, but Honda Groms, these things are basically here to stay. Now, another pro that could also be viewed as a con, going off of that whole power speech, is that it is a very small motorcycle, which I personally love. I'm about 5'10", 5'11". I'm currently heavier than I've ever been. I think I weigh like 185 pounds right now. And it is surprisingly very, very comfortable. I know people who are even taller than me, and they also ride Honda Groms, and they love them too. I guess if you are a giant person, you could feel kind of uncomfortable on here, but as you can see, I kind of scoot all the way back. I'm almost sitting on the passenger seat, and it allows me to kind of stretch out a little bit. And I could ride this thing for quite a long time. Now, the con side of that is it is such a small bike that it is harder to be seen. So that's where I did some things like added the really bright orange accents in the front and the rear. Just makes things pop a little bit more, hopefully making me more visible. I also have this kind of obnoxiously loud exhaust on here, which at the time of doing that modification, there was really nothing else available because the bike was brand new at the time. I'm sure there are a ton of exhaust systems out there now, but this one was relatively inexpensive. I think it looks good and it sounds good, but for some people's taste, it could be a little bit too loud. So since the bike is small, but it is loud, it allows people like that to kind of see me and hear me. That guy just let me pass because he probably knows that I'm up here trying to ride to have some fun. Now, you could have a baffle installed in this exhaust, I believe. I think it actually might have come with one, but I, of course, removed that. And then with the tune, the camshaft upgrade and everything, all of those mods are supported by that new ECU, and it makes some decent power. I'm doing 51 miles an hour here, still climbing an elevation, and that's a big thing too. If I was riding this at sea level, it would probably make way more power. And when I say way more power, I'm talking like a couple horsepower here and there. It would allow the bike to breathe a little bit better, and it would probably feel more responsive and faster. I've been riding this thing in Colorado since I got it, and I did all of those mods to squeeze a little bit more power, make it a little bit more usable. Maybe in the future, I'll throw this thing on the back of the van or my truck and take it to some place at sea level to really feel the difference. Now, if you go and look at these bikes today, the 2024 Honda, I believe they advertise a miles per gallon of 160. Fuel economy of 160 miles per gallon, which is absolutely insane. I've been riding for about an hour now, basically full throttle everywhere I go because I had to take some highways to get up here, and currently averaging 115 miles per gallon, which is, ooh, a deer. It's absolutely insane getting that kind of fuel economy out of a tiny bike like this while still being able to ride on some highways at 65 miles an hour. Every time I get on this bike after a long hiatus like this entire year, I go for one quick ride and I'm like, damn, why have I not been riding this thing all summer? It's just so much fun. This always kind of comes and goes in waves, but I'm always super busy throughout the spring and summer. And then once things slowly start to slow down a little bit into the fall, then I'm like, oh, hey, motorcycle, let's go for a ride. And now I have the bug to ride, but it's going to be winter here soon, so maybe I just need more friends with Grom so I can have a little bit more motivation to actually take this thing out. So really low price point. I like the power of it because it's not too much. Some people would say it's not quite enough, but with some supporting mods, that's another thing. The aftermarket support on these things is absolutely crazy. So you have price, power, the size of it's really small. It's easy to kind of push around and throw into turns if you need to. Has great aftermarket support. It gets really good fuel economy. It's comfortable. There's just so many good things about this tiny little motorcycle. And like I said in the beginning of the video, I would say that this is one of the best motorcycles ever made. There are tons of really great motorcycles out there today, but this one just has kind of a soft spot in my heart because it's always been in my garage. I've been riding them for like 10 years now, and there's just something about the mini motos that just make them super, super fun to ride. I actually went and looked at Honda's website the other day to kind of see if there was anything new on the Honda Groms, and it looks like they did change the styling a little bit. They're still right around that $3,500 MSRP. And I also realized that Honda Powersports, they have a whole mini moto line now. They've got the Grom, they've got the Ruckus, they've got the Navi, they have the Monkey, they have some of the trail bikes, and there's like a lot of options for these small displacement motorcycles or just two-wheeled vehicles out there. And that's something that I really love. I think the Grom is still one of the least expensive options on their website right now, but I would love to get some seat time on some of those other ones to see kind of what the differences are. I know the Honda Monkey is very similar to this guy with just like some different styling. The Monkey looks a little bit older and more like retro. But yeah, huge props to Honda for actually supporting the mini moto market. And there's some other options out there too, like whatever the Kawasaki version of this bike is. I haven't really looked at those in a long time. And then there's some other Chinese manufacturers out there making something similar too. I don't think anything will really replace my love for the Honda Grom until maybe there's something like bigger and better. I would like to ride my Honda Ruckus more, but in the area that I live, it just doesn't really make sense. If I could take the styling and seating position and everything about the Honda Ruckus with this motor and a gearbox, that would be incredible. Like a Honda Grom drivetrain swapped into a Ruckus, I feel like that would be absolutely incredible. Now that's kind of how the Navi is. It's like a motorcycle scooter hybrid kind of thing. I don't think I would enjoy that too much because this right here fits my needs of going 65, sometimes even a little bit faster than that. So I can actually ride this thing around without feeling too underpowered. But anyway, I just love these little small motorcycles. It doesn't feel like a nuisance having an expensive motorcycle sitting in my garage not being ridden. So for that reason, this thing is kind of here to stay. And although I haven't brought you guys updates on it in a while, this is it. This is the update. I can't believe I only have 1,050 miles on this bike. Now, just before I bought this Grom, that was the same time that I picked up the Ruckus, so I probably have like almost 600 miles on that, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for a 49cc scooter, I feel like I've been riding that thing a decent amount. And then right after I picked up this Grom, that was when I bought my Husqvarna 701 Supermoto, and I put a lot more miles on that than were on this. So with all that being said, I only have 1,050 miles on this thing, and I feel bad. I feel like I've been neglecting this thing and I should really be riding it a lot more. I think these Bridgestone Battle Axe tires are definitely gonna make me use this thing more, just as kind of like a commuter. If I want to run out and grab some lunch, I don't need to take the trucks or the van or the car. Just hop on this thing when the weather's nice and go for kind of a fun little lunch. A lot of times throughout the years, I'm traveling around and like moving things around, shipping orders and stuff like that. So that's kind of why motorcycles for me recently have been taking the back burner. But like I said, at this time of year, beautiful fall in Colorado. All these aspens are still changing colors. This is a time of year where things slow down, and then I get to ride motorcycle, fall in love with riding motorcycles again, and then in like about a month from now, it'll be too cold and it'll be snowing, so I won't be able to enjoy it anymore. So I guess that's my rant for the day. A lot of pros, a few little cons, but some of those cons I kind of look at pros in my eyes. I'm curious where you guys stand. If you're a new rider, does the Honda Grom look like something that would entice you to make a purchase? Or if you've been riding motorcycles for a long time, you're probably on the fence. You either love these things or you hate them. A lot of people who hate on these things, I think it's kind of like an ego trip. I feel like a lot of younger people who are getting into riding motorcycles just want to have the biggest, fastest bike around. They're going out and buying leader bikes, which you can barely even ride on the street because they just make so much power. And I'm not saying there's anything really negative about that. I think it's just, I guess, me and my old age. I'm getting older. I'm not 16 years old anymore, ripping wheelies everywhere I go. I just like riding around through the mountains, enjoying the simplicity of a motorcycle. It doesn't get much more simple than a bike like this, the Honda Grom, and yeah, I'm just curious where you guys stand on all of that. So I'm going to head back in town, got to fuel up, grab some food, and work on some more videos for you guys. If you guys are interested in some more moto content, whether it's the Sur-Ron, the Ruckus, or the Grom, let me know in the comments down below. I'll try to answer any questions that you guys have as best as possible. And if you want to see more moto content, I can try to sneak some in here before it gets too cold in Colorado. Let me know what you guys actually want to see or hear me talk about while we're out here riding, and yeah, I'll try to make all that stuff happen. So if you guys are new to this channel, consider clicking subscribe. I make new videos every single week. As always, thank you for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one.